Welcome back, capital F football fans, to the O&O Sports YouTube channel. Today we are going over our previews and predictions for the conference championship games this weekend. It's set up to be an amazing slate of games, and as a reminder, we are giving away $100 to one of our followers. If you want a chance to win, subscribe and follow our social media pages down below. Links to those will be in that description. Just click on it. You could win $100, easiest thing in the world. But without further ado, let's jump into our conference championship previews, starting with the Big 12, 16th ranked Iowa State versus 15th ranked Arizona State. These two squads are very similar, not just in color scheme, but in play style. Both squads have a solid ground attack, both have dual threat quarterbacks, and both have very stout defenses. And with a battle this even at a neutral site, it's likely to come down to who has the better playmakers. For Iowa State, those are going to be their two-star wideouts, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, both already with over 1,000 yards on the season with 15 total touchdowns. They've been Rocco Becht's favorite targets this season. And speaking of Rocco, Arizona State's defense has been very solid at stopping the ground game this season. Don't be surprised if Rocco Becht gets out of the pocket a good bit in this one. He'll need to make those kinds of plays if he wants to win this one. But on the other side, who else would we lead off with other than Cam Scatabo? He's been one of the best backs in the country this year. Should have been a Doug Walker finalist, but that's neither here nor there. He's going to take up the majority of that Arizona State offense in this one. And for Sam Leavitt, the quarterback, all you need to do is not turn the ball over, have a very solid game, get the ball to your targets, high completion percentage, and you should be on pace for a win here. And he's been great at doing that this year. This should be a very underrated quarterback duel to watch. Both of these guys can make sparks fly, and both are going to need to play their best if they want to get the W here. That goes without saying, of course, in the conference championship game. But for your players to watch, it will be Cam Scatabo for Arizona State. 247 carries for nearly 1,400 rushing yards and 17 touchdowns this year, with an additional 35 receptions for 468 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's been felt all over the field. But for Iowa State, it is the quarterback Rocco Becht. Completion percentage only at a 59.2, but he has over 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions this year, and an additional 85 carries for 272 yards and 7 touchdowns on top of that. And now let's look at the SEC. 5th ranked Georgia versus 2nd ranked Texas. This rematch is the best so far this year. If you look back to week 7, you'll see Texas's only loss this year to their conference title opponent, the Georgia Bulldogs, and they have an opportunity for redemption here. But in order to do that, their offense is going to need to step up big time. In their last meeting, these teams were giving each other possessions left and right, and the Texas quarterback duo of Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning actually coughed up the ball 4 times in this one to essentially give that game away to the Bulldogs. So if you're Steve Sarkisian, if you're Quinn Ewers, if you're Arch Manning, the plan really is simple. Hold on to the football. Georgia's not a perfect team. You can afford to have a turnover in this game, but when you get into 2, 3, 4 turnovers, you're not going to stand a chance. But for Georgia, the plan is also similar. Convince Carson Beck to care about football for this game, and you should be fine. We've seen him have great performances when the lights are the brightest, but we've also seen him sleepwalk through games at times this year. You need at least a B+ game from him and an A+ game from that defense like it had in week 7 when they held the Longhorns to 29 rushing yards on 27 attempts. That's barely over 1 rush yard per attempt, folks. If you replicate that kind of performance, you should be headed to the playoff as a top 4 seed. But let's keep it real, the committee's not keeping a 3-loss Georgia out anyways. And for your players to watch in this one, it's going to be the linebacker for Texas, Anthony Hill Jr. 41 tackles this year, 15 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, an interception, a pass defense, and 4 forced fumbles. His impact has been felt all year, and it needs to be felt here in order for the Longhorns to win this one. Same with Georgia quarterback Carson Beck, who is your player to watch for the Bulldogs. 65.1% passing for 3,400 yards, 28 touchdowns, and a conference high 12 interceptions. Now let's look at Penn State versus Oregon, number 3 versus number 1. Not the matchup we were expecting here, but it's the matchup we're getting out of the Big Ten, and it looks like a good one on paper. These are two teams that are hard pressed on limiting the run. Two teams with great running back tandems that can also air it out. Sounds like two typical elite Big Ten teams, but if you're Penn State, you're going to have to figure out how to limit Oregon on the perimeter as well. Dylan Gabriel has done a phenomenal job at stretching out defenses this season, which has opened up the run game. And step one in defeating that process will be getting Gabriel on the ground. You've got an elite edge talent in Abdul Carter, and I would imagine they're going to be sending him directly at Gabriel in this one. He's quick, agile, he's got the perfect amount of explosiveness to dampen Gabriel's impact on this game. But for the Ducks, the main path to victory will be the one you've taken all year. Spread the defense out and let the James Whittington Gabriel effect work. It's worked time and time again. You have talent on the perimeters that'll stretch defenses out. You have a tight end as a safety blanket, and then you have those two great running backs. There's no real need to adjust big time here. As long as you don't give up a 200-yard game on the ground, you should be in the driver's seat in this one. And for your players to watch, for Oregon, it is quarterback Dillon Gabriel, 73.5% throwing the football this year for 3,275 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, with an additional 175 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. And for Penn State, like we said, it is Abdul Carter, 33 tackles, 20 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, 3 pass defenses, and 2 forced fumbles. He needs to have a big day today if the Nittany Lions want a top 4 seed in the playoff. And last in your Power 4 conference title matchups, it's 17th ranked Clemson versus 8th ranked SMU. This could be the most interesting matchup of the weekend outside of the game itself. There's a lot riding on the outcome of this one. One way or another, someone's going to be disappointed, but we'll let the cards fall where they may there. This matchup has a ton of interesting wrinkles in it. Our favorite of the bunch is that SMU's offense is very similar to South Carolina's. You've got a dual threat quarterback, a workhorse running back who can hurt you in the run and pass game, a couple solid wideouts, and a spastic defense that forces a lot of turnovers. But the thing that the defense hasn't done an amazing job of this year is stopping the pass, which leads us to Cade Klubnik. Not a bad player at all, very efficient, makes good reads, pretty decent completion percentage guy, but his offense is very conservative. You won't see him force too many deep balls, and it feels like he has played relatively poorly in crunch time this year. A lot of the offense is contingent on Cade playing great. A lot of the pressure is on him each and every week, and we think when he's on, this team is capable of winning a playoff game or maybe even 2, but he has not been on for a majority of this year. We think SMU will really force the issue here, force Cade to make quick decisions, swallow up the run game, and really make Clemson do what it does not want to do, which is play from behind and play aggressively. And with that, your players to watch in this one will be the running back for SMU, Brashard Smith. Keep an eye out on him, especially if they can get the ball to him in the receiving game. He's carried the ball 193 times this year for 1,100 yards and 4 touchdowns, and has that additional receiving element of his game for 269 yards and 3 extra touchdowns. For Clemson, it's going to be the edge, TJ Parker, 30 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, a pass defense, a fumble recovery, and 5 forced fumbles on his own this year. And with that, let's jump into our conference championship predictions. Starting at the group of 5 level with the Conference USA Championship, we think Jacksonville State will go over Western Kentucky for the 2nd week in a row, 31-28. And then we have the American Championship, Tulane at Army. This is looking like it's going to be an amazing game. Be sure to check this one out tonight if you have the time. And we're actually calling an upset here. We have Tulane winning this one on the road, 30-24. After that, it's the Mountain West Championship, UNLV at Boise State, the rematch from their game earlier this year that was held in Las Vegas that ended in a Boise State victory. But we have the roles reversed here. Give us the Rebels to win this one at Boise State, 35-30. And next, for the MACtion title, we have Ohio playing Miami of Ohio in Michigan of all places, go figure. This one is being held at Ford Field, the Lions Stadium, and we're predicting a Red Hawk victory here. Give us Miami to win this game, 27-24. And last in your group of 5 conference championship matchups, we have the Sun Belt title game, Marshall at Louisiana, and we're going to actually be leaning in favor of the Raging Cajuns. That offense has been outstanding this year. We think Louisiana wins this one, 35-27. And first in your Power 4 conference championships, let's look at the Big 12, Iowa State versus Arizona State. And like we said earlier, this one is probably going to come down to each team's playmakers. And of each team's playmakers, we have to go in favor of the Sun Devil rushing attack and Cam Scatabo in particular. He has been amazing this year, and we think a strong performance from him leads Arizona State to a win and a postseason bid, 28-23. And next, let's look to everyone's favorite conference, the SEC, where Georgia and Texas face off in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And both of these squads have been hard to predict this year, to say the least. Georgia has had major ups and downs. Texas has looked subpar at times. But if we want to count on one thing, it's Carson Beck playing his best game when the lights are brightest, especially because they won't be playing against Alabama this year. They don't have to worry about that. Deep sigh of relief there for the Bulldog fans, and get excited because we're predicting a Bulldog victory, 31-24. And now let's look at the Big Ten. Oregon versus Penn State, a pretty great matchup on paper, but Oregon has looked like the best team all season long. Their offense has looked like the most complete unit in the sport, and that defense has proven it can take on the brunt of Big Ten style offenses this year. Penn State has a chance in this one if they can have a phenomenal day on defense and get Gabriel on the ground early, but we think Oregon just has too much firepower here. Give us the Ducks to win this one, 33-20. And last, we have the game in the Panthers Stadium, the ACC Championship game featuring Clemson and SMU, and we're just going to have to lean SMU here. If last week showed us anything, it's that twitchy teams like SMU and South Carolina are not Clemson's forte, but with all the craziness of the season coming to a head here, we would not be surprised if Dabo pulls off a miracle and gets his boys back in the playoff once again. We are not predicting that to happen though. Give us SMU to take the ACC title in their first year in the conference, 34-27. And as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And be sure to tune in to our video later in the weekend for the recap of conference championships and for the final Todd's Red Carpet, where we go over our predictions for what the playoff picture will look like. Thank you for watching, and we will see you there.